Your boss just promoted the guy who shows up late over you again. That woman you've been texting goes cold after you suggest dinner. Your friends interrupt you like your background noise. While you've been following be yourself advice, other men have been playing by completely different rules. Rules that a 16th century Italian philosopher cracked before anyone invented therapy. Machiavelli didn't write about feelings, he wrote about results. The psychological weapons he designed for Renaissance princes worked devastatingly well on modern women, bosses, and social hierarchies. In this video, 9 tools that have nothing to do with positive thinking and everything to do with rewriting how people see you and submit to your frame. What if all the confidence tips you've heard aren't just wrong, they're making you weaker? The self-help crowd chanting "believe in yourself" skips the one truth Machiavelli spelled out in The Prince. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Your issue isn't lack of confidence, it's using the wrong tools to build it. When your boss swats away your ideas, when attractive women look past you like your decor, when friends slide in those harmless digs at your goals, that's not bad luck. It's the signal you're sending without knowing it. Machiavelli called it sprezzatura, the deliberate ease that makes people respect you instead of pity you. And here's the twist, while everyone else is meditating and journaling their way to nowhere, the same playbook Machiavelli gave to Renaissance princes works just as well for men in offices, bars, and every modern social arena, because human nature hasn't evolved in half a millennium. Now that we've identified the real problem, let's dive into something that'll probably make you uncomfortable at first. You're going to have to abandon the comfortable lie that confidence is something that just happens to lucky people. Before we hit the first tool, do one thing: like and subscribe so this isn't the last time you get strategies that actually work in the real world. Miss the next one, and you'll go right back to the same recycled "believe in yourself" advice that's been keeping you stuck. The first tool sounds absolutely insane, but stick with me. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel." Translation: perception is reality, and most people are terrible at reading between the lines. So here's what you're going to do: start keeping a power audit of every social interaction. Every conversation at work, every text exchange, every moment when someone either respects or dismisses you, write it down. Not to analyze your feelings about it, but to identify the specific behaviors that generated each response. Did you interrupt that colleague who always talks over you, and suddenly they started listening? Did you wait 3 hours to respond to that group chat, and now people seem more eager for your input? This isn't about playing games, it's about understanding the game that's already being played around you. Your ex-girlfriend probably never told you this, but she knew within the first 10 minutes of every date whether she respected you or not. Same with your gym buddy who somehow gets preferential treatment from trainers, or that neighbor who never seems to have problems with contractors. They've unconsciously mastered something Machiavelli called necessary behavior, doing what produces results, not what feels comfortable. The second tool will make your mother worry about you, but Machiavelli was clear: it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Now, before you start practicing your intimidating stare in the mirror, understand what he really meant. Fear, in Machiavelli's context, isn't about being scary, it's about being unpredictable enough that people can't take you for granted. Think about the most confident guy you know. I guarantee he has boundaries that people don't cross, not because he's mean, but because everyone understands there are consequences. He'll walk away from conversations that bore him. He'll cancel plans if something better comes up. He'll disagree with his boss when he thinks they're wrong. This isn't sociopathy, it's self-respect made visible. Start with something small. Next time someone at work tries to dump their responsibilities on you with that passive-aggressive "when you get a chance" email, don't respond immediately. Take a day. When you do respond, be helpful but not desperate. I can take a look at this Thursday afternoon. Not OMG yes, whatever you need, I live to serve you. Watch how quickly the dynamic shifts. But here's where most guys mess this up completely. They think being unpredictable means being an asshole. Wrong. Machiavelli also wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." The key word is choose. You want to be someone who could be difficult if necessary, but chooses to be pleasant. That's what creates respect. The third tool sounds like something your grandfather might have done, and that's exactly why it works. Machiavelli understood that most people are sheep following whatever seems like the dominant trend. He wrote, "Men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities." In other words, people will follow whoever appears to have their shit figured out, even if that person is just better at appearing confident than actually being confident. So here's what you're going to do: pick one area of your life and become genuinely, obsessively competent at it. Not passionate, competent. Could be cooking, could be fixing things, could be knowing wine, could be understanding cryptocurrency. Doesn't matter what it is, but you need to become the guy people call when they have questions about that thing. Why does this work? Because competence in one area creates a halo effect. When you can confidently explain the difference between a ripe avocado and an overripe one at the grocery store, people unconsciously assume you probably know what you're doing in other areas too. It's not logical, but humans aren't logical creatures. Your dating life will improve not because you learn to cook, but because you learn to be authoritative about something. Your career will advance not because you became a wine expert, but because you demonstrated the ability to master complex information and communicate it clearly. Machiavelli called this the appearance of virtue, and appearance, as he noted, is what most people actually respond to. If you want to go deeper into why most men lose respect before they even open their mouth, watch my video "This is why 99% of amateurs don't command respect." It breaks down the exact mistakes that silently destroy your presence, and once you see them, you'll understand why these tools work so well. The link is on the screen and in the description section. Now that we've covered the foundation, let's explore why traditional confidence advice fails so spectacularly for most men. The problem with most confidence advice is that it assumes you're starting from zero, like some kind of blank slate who just needs the right thoughts pumped into his brain. But you're not starting from zero, you're starting from years of conditioning that taught you to seek approval, avoid conflict, and prioritize other people's comfort over your own effectiveness. Machiavelli understood something that modern psychology seems to have forgotten: confidence isn't a feeling, it's a byproduct of competent action. He wrote, "I'm not interested in preserving the status quo, I want to overthrow it." This wasn't about revolution for its own sake, it was about understanding that real power comes from being willing to disrupt systems that don't serve you. Think about the last time you felt genuinely confident. I bet it wasn't because you repeated positive affirmations or practiced power poses in your bathroom mirror. It was probably because you did something difficult and succeeded. Maybe you fixed something that was broken. Maybe you had a difficult conversation that went better than expected. Maybe you stood up to someone who was being unreasonable. That's not a coincidence, that's how confidence actually works. The fourth tool is going to require you to become comfortable with something most modern men have been trained to avoid: strategic conflict. Not picking fights, not being confrontational for its own sake, but being willing to disagree when disagreement serves your interests. Machiavelli wrote, "He who neglects what is done for what ought to be done, sooner affects his ruin than his preservation." Translation: being agreeable all the time isn't noble, it's self-destructive. Every time you nod along with opinions you disagree with, every time you laugh at jokes you don't find funny, Every time you pretend to be interested in conversations that bore you, you're training everyone around you to see you as someone whose opinions and preferences don't matter. Start small. Next time someone suggests a restaurant you hate, suggest something else instead of just going along with it. When a coworker makes a claim you know is factually wrong, politely correct them instead of letting it slide. When someone asks for your opinion, give your actual opinion instead of trying to figure out what they want to hear. This feels terrifying at first because you've been conditioned to believe that disagreement equals rejection. But here's what actually happens. People start taking you more seriously. They start asking for your opinion because they know you'll give them something honest instead of just echoing their own thoughts back at them. They start respecting your boundaries because you've demonstrated that you have boundaries. The fifth tool involves mastering what Machiavelli called the economy of attention. He observed that princes who made themselves too available lost their mystique and therefore their power. Familiarity breeds contempt, he wrote, and this applies to every relationship in your life, from romantic to professional to social. Most guys make themselves too available, too eager, too responsive. They answer texts immediately, they say yes to every social invitation, they volunteer for extra work, they make themselves endlessly accessible to friends who need emotional support. This seems generous, but it's actually self-sabotage. Attention is a currency, and like any currency, its value is determined by scarcity. When you make your attention freely and constantly available, you devalue it. When you make people earn your attention, they value it more. This isn't manipulation, it's basic economics applied to human relationships. Practice strategic unavailability. Take longer to respond to non-urgent messages. Be selective about which social events you attend. Let some phone calls go to voicemail. Not out of rudeness, but out of respect for your own time and energy. Watch how quickly people start treating your time as more valuable when you demonstrate that you treat it as valuable. The sixth tool requires you to understand something about human nature that most people pretend isn't true. Everyone is constantly evaluating status and power dynamics, even in casual social situations. Machiavelli wrote, "Since it is difficult to join them together, it is safer to be feared than to be loved when one of the two must be lacking." This doesn't mean you need to be unlikable, but it does mean you need to understand that likable people without boundaries get walked on, while people with clear boundaries tend to be both respected and, ultimately, more liked. It's counterintuitive, but true. Think about group dynamics at work or in your friend circle. There's always someone who gets interrupted constantly, whose suggestions get ignored, who ends up doing more work for less recognition. There's also usually someone who never gets interrupted, whose opinions carry weight, who somehow ends up in leadership roles without explicitly seeking them. The difference isn't talent or likability, it's boundary management. We've already covered how perception shapes reality and strategic unavailability. Now let's explore something that'll probably challenge your assumptions about authenticity. The seventh tool sounds manipulative until you understand what Machiavelli actually meant by the ends justify the means. He wasn't advocating for casual cruelty or dishonesty. He was pointing out that good intentions without effective action are worthless, while effective action can sometimes require uncomfortable choices. Applied to confidence, you don't have to feel confident to act confident, and acting confident consistently will eventually make you feel confident. This isn't fake it till you make it, this is understanding that feelings follow actions, not the other way around. Most guys wait to feel confident before taking confident action. They think they need to work on their inner game before they can have difficult conversations, set boundaries, or pursue ambitious goals. But Machiavelli would tell you that's backwards. You develop confidence by repeatedly taking actions that require confidence, not by sitting around waiting for confidence to spontaneously appear. Start taking action while feeling uncertain. Apply for jobs you're not sure you're qualified for. Ask questions in meetings even when you're worried they might be stupid questions. Approach conversations with attractive women even when you feel nervous. The nervousness doesn't disqualify the action, it just means you're doing something that requires growth. The eighth tool involves understanding what Machiavelli called the appearance of virtue versus actual virtue. He observed that leaders who were genuinely virtuous in every situation often failed, while leaders who appeared virtuous while being strategically flexible when necessary tended to succeed. For modern men, this means understanding that being a good guy isn't enough if nobody notices or respects that goodness. You need to make your positive qualities visible and your boundaries clear. Help people, but don't be a pushover. Be generous, but not with people who take advantage of that generosity. Be honest, but don't volunteer information that serves no purpose except to make you look bad. This isn't about becoming fake, it's about becoming strategic about how you present your authentic self. Most guys hide their best qualities while accidentally highlighting their worst ones. They downplay their accomplishments while oversharing their insecurities. They focus on being humble while forgetting to be impressive. The ninth and most crucial tool brings everything together. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." This means that what you think you're communicating and what people are actually receiving are often completely different things. Most men think they're being thoughtful when they're actually being indecisive. They think they're being considerate when they're actually being invisible. They think they're being humble when they're actually being forgettable. The gap between intention and perception is where confidence goes to die. So here's the final tool: start paying attention to results instead of intentions. If people consistently interrupt you, you're not communicating authority effectively, regardless of how authoritative you feel internally. If your suggestions get ignored in meetings, you're not presenting them in a way that commands attention, regardless of how good the suggestions are. If dates consistently end without physical escalation, you're not creating attraction, regardless of how attracted you feel. Machiavelli would tell you to stop focusing on whether you're being a good person and start focusing on whether you're being an effective person. Good intentions that produce bad results are worse than strategic actions that produce good results. This isn't about abandoning your values, it's about making sure your values actually serve you instead of sabotaging you. Now that you get how perception drives reality and why strategy crushes good intentions, the question is how to use it without turning into a knockoff of yourself. Real change isn't instant, and shouldn't be. Machiavelli knew sudden shifts make people suspicious, gradual ones let them adjust without panic. Pick one tool, run it for a month, then add another. Try to flip your whole personality overnight and you'll either burn out or look like you've joined a cult. The goal isn't reinvention, it's upgrading the operating system. In weeks, a power audit becomes muscle memory. You'll see which moves earn respect, which invite dismissal, and stop taking social dynamics personally. Strategic unavailability feels wrong at first, but watch how your attention gains value when it's not on tap 24/7. Boundaries work the same way. Once you have them, most people prefer the clarity. By month 3, these aren't tactics anymore, they're just you. You ask sharper questions, listen for openings, and contribute instead of orbiting conversations. At work, you speak up unprompted, push for the projects you want, and build alliances instead of hoping hard work gets noticed. In dating, you create attraction instead of waiting for it to happen, plan with intent, and keep your own life instead of vanishing into someone else's. The biggest shift? Life stops happening to you, you start shaping it. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said fortune favors the bold. The cost: losing some easy relationships and annoying people who liked the old, compliant you, isn't a flaw. It's the filter that leaves you with connections built on respect, not convenience. We've just covered how Machiavellian principles can rebuild your confidence from the ground up, but this is only half the game. The real test comes when people push back against your new boundaries. That's where most men fold. If you want to know exactly how to handle that resistance and turn it into influence, go to my Power as Design playlist. It's packed with psychological tactics to navigate any social hierarchy without burning bridges, so your confidence isn't just built, it's untouchable.